So welcome to another week of the Cool Tools Show and Tell. Our guest this week is the one and only AJ Jacobs. And he has a special thing he will talk about and share about at the end. But right now, AJ, could you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. First, thanks for having me. Very excited to show and tell. And I'm AJ Jacobs. I am a writer and a journalist. And usually my books are about where I try something out. I immerse myself in a lifestyle or subculture and then write about it. So my best-selling one ever was The Year of Living Biblically.
And this recent excursion, which we'll get to, is about your immersion into the world of puzzles and how puzzling that might be. I'm a lifelong fan of puzzles. And so I did a deep dive into every kind of puzzle. My true love is word puzzles, crosswords and spelling bee. But then I got into the mechanical puzzles, the Rubik's cubes, jigsaws, puzzle boxes, math, logic puzzles. I just went all in, and the book is the result of that. Well, that sounds like incredible fun. So we'll get to that. But let's talk about some of your cool tools that might be puzzle related or not.
Yeah, one of them is indeed. I couldn't resist. It's something on my mind.
But I must tell you that you changed my life on the last time we had you on Cool Tools. And you changed my life because I got rid of my shoelaces and I got elastic shoelaces. And I tell you, every time I put my shoes on or off, I think of you.
That is the nicest thing I've ever heard. You told me that, and I am thrilled to have I have saved you minutes of your life, probably exactly. Like a combined 7 minutes. And I want to pay it forward to Rick Smolin, who you may know.
Oh, yeah.
Said a lot. He's the one who introduced him to me. So thank you.
Well, I need to make my pilgrimage to Rick and let him know that I thank him too.
Sure. Yeah. He was the origin for me, and he probably got it from someone else.
Taking a cue from your gratitude book. I'm going to back to the source.
Exactly. So thank you. I hope to change your life this time too.
You probably will. So,
oh, by the way, you have changed my life. You're an expensive show listening to you. I've bought several things recently. And tomorrow I'm getting my breath, the little tool that makes it harder to breathe.
Right.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay, great. So tell us about your first cool tool pick.
My first cool tool pick, well, I did have to go with a puzzle because, I've been living them for 3 years. And I was never a huge jigsaw puzzle fan. It was my least favorite genre of puzzles because I was a snob. I was a jerk. I admit it. I have seen the light. I am converted because jigsaws, first, they have a lovely meditative quality, but also there are jigsaws out there that are so clever, that are so brilliant and tricky and even funny. I've actually laughed out loud doing some of these puzzles. I look like a madman.
So pause there. How can a jigsaw puzzle be funny?
Well, it's not any jigsaw puzzle. It is the one that I am talking about today, which is a company called Stave Puzzles. And Stave is not your average puzzle. They are hand-cut wooden puzzles. They're gorgeous, super expensive, and we'll talk about how to find cheaper versions later. But they can be hundreds, even thousands of dollars. Bill Gates is a fan, to give you a clue. But they're hand-cut, and the guy who started them, like 40 years ago, he likes to call himself Chief Tormentor. So he is gleefully sadistic because these puzzles are super tricky. The edge pieces don't look like edge pieces. Sometimes they're 3D. He'll throw in pieces from other puzzles that don't belong in that puzzle. There will be puzzle pieces that fit 1,000 different ways. So it is crazy. And they are just visually, they're quite lovely. So this one, often they're in interesting shapes because they're hand carved. So they can be in the shapes of actual things. Here's one from a puzzle. It's sort of a safari themed puzzle.
Right.
Every one of his puzzle has their mascot, which is the stave, the stave jester, but they can also be 3D pieces. So here's an example of a 3D piece.
Wow.
And there's another level of trickery with the 3D piece. So it's not just that it's for a show. The hardest one, I'll show you the before and after. The hardest one, when I went to visit, I asked him, what's the hardest one? And he said, well, it's hard to choose, but one of them is called Olivia. It's about an octopus themed puzzle. And I said, oh, can I have it? He said, nope. He said, you have to work your way up to it. He's tough because he says, if you try it without trying some of the easier ones, you will just go crazy. So I did work my way up, and this is the before, and I have a picture of the after, but not quite the after, because the trick is this puzzle can be solved in 10,000 different ways. And there's only one, which is the correct way, where the octopus will actually fit inside of the coral reef. So here's a picture from my book. This is an incorrect solution, so I'm not spoiling. But that is Olivia, the devilish octopus. So I am a huge fan. As I say, they can be crazy expensive. So one option is buy them used off eBay, buy them, go in with your friends, like you have a share.
I guess that would make sense that people would solve the jigsaw and not really, and then they would be able to easily kind of pass it on to resell it. So,
although some people love to put them on the wall, I was surprised by how.
Yeah, I never thought about used jigsaws. Okay, go ahead.
There's also another company called Liberty that makes wooden puzzles as well. They are not hand cut; they're laser cut, so they're able to do them cheaper. They're not quite as good, but they're still great. And also they're not cheap, but they're much cheaper. They're like $100, $200. So that is my first cool tool.
And so the one that you're recommending, though, is not just jigsaws in general, but it's the Stave brand of puzzles. Is that
right? Stave or Liberty.
Or Liberty. Okay.
The wood, basically wood cut, super tricky.
Right.
Sometimes, as I say, hilarious puzzles.
Right.
And
so you might recommend people go onto eBay and look for used versions of them.
Exactly. Unless you probably have some high-end listeners. So
well, yeah, but I mean, it's always good to kind of work your way up.
Right. See if you like it.
I always like to buy the cheapest tool possible first, and then earn my way into the expensive ones. So
that's a tool right there.
There you go.
By the way, speaking of great things, I am very excited because I was going to feature this as one of my 4, but I figured it was a little too, you wouldn't like it because it's too Kevin Kelly oriented, but I love my Vanishing Asia.
Oh, okay.
Here it is, people. Buy it. It is gorgeous. This is just one of the volumes.
Yeah.
And tell me what you think of this, Kevin, because I love it so much that I want to donate 2 of the 3 to my kids' school library, but I want to keep one because it's because I can't part with all of them. But the librarian is very into East Asian culture, and I was telling her about it, and she said she would love to have it. So I thought it would spread your pictures more widely. Okay. Are you okay with that?
I love the idea of keeping them moving.
Okay, good. Excellent. But I'm keeping one because I don't want to give them. So I'm splitting them up. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So the and by the way, just so people knows, you can't buy them separately. They only come as a set. So if you see one floating around, that it means that they have been split up.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll keep it for a few years and then I'll donate the final one to the library to reunite them.
Yeah. I was interested in donating a set to the Asia Society library, but I was astounded to find out that they don't have a library. It was like, what? I have a library for Asia Studies.
That was odd.
Yeah. I like to get them into libraries as much as I could.
Great.
So what's your second
my second tool is an app. So it is Oh no, actually, wait, did I do that as my
Well, it doesn't. The order isn't really crucial.
All right. Well, okay, yeah, we can do the app as the next one, which is it's called Ground News, and it is a small. Have you heard of it? No.
Mm-hmm.
It's I. It is a pay site, but and I think the subscription is pretty cheap. I can't remember. It's like $5 a year, maybe. Don't quote me on that. Check it out before you buy. But what I like about it is they have a feature called Blind Spot. So it's an news aggregator. So they take articles from all over the spectrum, from left-oriented media, centrist media, and right-oriented media. And then they tell you with this blind spot, you can see what is the left-oriented media covering and not covering, and what is the right-oriented media covering and not covering. Because I'm in my liberal bubble, I read the New York Times and Atlantic and Slate or whatever, and usually you don't get what the right is covering, which is, and today, a lot of Hunter Biden. There seems always to be Hunter Biden. There's one, Bill Gates. They definitely are anti-Bill Gates in the right-wing media generally. This is some alleged dark money that he's involved in. And, predictably, they like to get angry about the plague of wokeism, as Elon Musk says. So I guess someone, I think it was San Francisco, doesn't want to use the word chief in school districts, like chief of. So I just find it fat, and I also like to see what the left is covering, and because I do think it's one of our great problems right now. I'm not the first to say it, but our biases are the misinformation, the disinformation. So this is just one of the many tools I use to try to keep myself from falling into a bubble.
Right.
So I recommend it.
So a similar thing that I use is the internet on one page. It's called Upstract. Ooh. And it has the headlines of all the sites, including Drudge, Fox, the right wings, Breitbart, and the left, Atlantic, and all that kind of stuff, and the centrists. And you get everything on one webpage, the whole thing every morning. It's the tech, it's Wired, it's everything on one page. And if you want to go deeper, you click on something and you get the story. And so you see all the headlines so the internet on one page. And it's left and right and center.
Can you spell it again? It's Upstract.
Upstract.
Okay, I'm in. That's great. I could use all the tools I can.
Yeah, it used to be Popperals. They changed the name, and it's been my go-to page for probably 10 years. The internet on one page.
That is amazing. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
But ground news sounds like a really good one for your phone. The thing about the internet one page, it really works better on a desktop because it's
right
page. But this ground news sounds like it's a good app for your phone.
That is all right. Thank you. I love it. Yeah, any tools I can use to give me more perspective, I love.
Yeah. And both of them are probably a little bit more U.S. centric, although the guy who's running it is European. So he tends to try to keep a more global view.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to know other sort of media bias, anti-bias tools if people want to tweet them.
Sure.
I would love to know more because the more the better. Do you want my number 3 tool?
Yes, please.
All right. Well, this one's an interesting one. A friend of mine recommended it, and it is called Askhole, and it is, I think it was $15, and it was, I think it was a Kickstarter. It's basically just a couple of hundred conversation starter cards.
Oh,
but they're very provocative. They're spicy. Some of them are spicy, and I'll give you a couple of examples. and I have a very high tolerance for this kind of thing. So some of them are even too provocative and spicy for me, which is saying a lot. And I'm not even going to read them because I don't want to get canceled. But this is, I'll give you some that are provocative but not offensive. Of all the beliefs you hold, which is most likely to be considered barbaric in 150 years?
That's a fantastic.
I love that one. I think about them.
That's a fantastic question. I asked that. Yes.
And what do you generally say? I'm actually interested.
For me, it's probably the fact that I eat any meat at all. I mean, I think eating.
Right. That's a big one.
Eating meat is obviously going to be something that will be considered pretty barbaric. I think I recently think the idea of burying people in the ground after they're dead seems to me really weird, a way to use land. It's like, why are we doing that?
So true.
And this idea that you can't build on it or use the land, or
I know. The housing crisis could be resolved with the amount of land. And I also think, just in general, I am anti-graveyard, because I think there are better ways to remember people than going to some physical place where their lifeless remains are. Like, instead of paying $2,000 for a headstone, pay $2,000 to a filmmaker to make, a story of your life that your kids and grandkids can watch. I am totally on your side on that.
So what do you say? What's one of your answers to that?
Well, meat is a big one. I love the graveyards one. I'm going to credit you, but I might say that one that I think it's weird when we get the room, now we have Roomba, but I imagine in 50 years we will have super duper Roombas that'll just clean up your whole house, do your dishes, whatever. So the idea of hiring someone to come in once a week to clean your toilet it just makes me, I do it. I'm a hypocrite, but it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Another one is, I think, we'll view this idea that people job was to count money. Cashier. It's like, what? That was their job, just counting coins and trying to add them up. I mean, that was their full-time job.
That is weird. You're right.
That's, it's like having the women in India who are making gravel by hand with little hammers. I mean, they sit in front of these big boulders, and all day long, they turn them into gravel for the road.
I know that. Wow.
Yes. I mean, that was their job. So it's like, that's just that's a barbaric use of a human life.
Right. Yeah.
And counting money is being a cashier is the same thing to me.
Yeah. No, that is one. Well, I do remember, I love to read the New York Times archives, and I remember reading, I forget when it was, probably the 20s, or maybe 40s, someone had invented an automatic bowling ball pin picker-upper. And the bowling ball pin boys were outraged because they were going to be put out of a job, but it was not a good job. People would purposely, because people are people sometimes, they would try to hit the bowling ball pin boys and hurt them. So it's not so I think overall it's good that has gone away.
So what's another example of the Askhole card?
Oh yeah, sure. Question. Which technology should not have been invented? Do you ever feel guilt or shame for romantically rejecting people? Let me see. Oh, by the way, the people who invented it, let me just read you the criteria that they used. And their names are Ayala and Hrothgar. They see, I don't know much about them. They are sort of on the internet writing and doing interesting things. But they said, these were handpicked from a pool of thousands of questions after years of research and playtesting. And the idea is they want questions that split respondents 50-50, generate lengthy discussion, generate discomfort while answering, generate different answers depending on gender, and require novel thought in order to produce an answer. So those were what they were thinking. This one I actually had a good conversation about. Would you rather double the amount of emotional pain and pleasure you feel on a daily basis, or cut them in half? And I'm kind of like, stoic. And so I would cut them in half, because I think I would be too scared of the negative emotions.
Right.
And it wouldn't, I don't know. I think people who are a little more risk taking than me would want to double their pleasure. But to me, I just couldn't handle it, the double the pain.
And how do you use the cards?
I use them anywhere from when I'm having dinner with friends or family, or we have a car ride coming up. So I'm going to try to get my kids to engage.
Okay.
Which sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But yeah, I find them great. And they're not the only good conversation cards. My friend Spencer Greenberg at Clearer Thinking has another great set of conversation starters.
Right.
So
like if you were sitting on an airplane, would you turn to the seat next to you and start?
I've never done that. That would be an interesting experiment, especially with some of these. I might get arrested by TSA on the way out. No, I've never done that, but it's an idea.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Have you seen the guys who do the YouTube channel called Yes Theory?
No, I'm writing it down.
So their motto is seek discomfort.
Oh, interesting.
So they try to do these things way outside their comfort zone. But they're, I mean, not in a mean way, not in a kind of a jackass way. I mean, just sort of like try to get someone to give them, or, see how far they can get on $100 around the world, or can they give someone, can they trade up to get someone, give them a ticket somewhere, or they wanted to stay with, they did something where they tried to stay in total darkness for 5 days and see what happens.
Oh, I like that. I mean, that sounds sort of like my books a little.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah. And so they have they have 7 million followers on YouTube. It's a big thing. There's 3 or 4 of them, and they try all kinds of stuff. Lots of it's travel oriented, but I was just reminded of the seeking discomfort.
Right.
Outside your comfort zone is part of their premise. And so there's a lot that can be done with deliberately seeking a little bit of discomfort as a way of learning and growing.
Well, that isn't. I actually was reading some study about that when you're young and you're more open to new experiences, you have a wider group of friends of different opinions. And as you get older and are more attracted to comfort, you surround yourself with people who are like-minded. And that made me think, I want to avoid that. I want to, that is a dangerous thing.
Right.
I've got to get used to the discomfort of hearing different opinions. Right.
Well, check out Yes Theory on YouTube.
I love that.
And they've been going for many years, and I've got hundreds of things to try. So that deck of cards is called Askhole, and
right.
I think for it. And I like the idea of having cards. And you're right, there are other decks of cards. There was one deck that was meant to be like an icebreaker at parties and stuff. And it was the idea that you skipped the small talk and you asked very significant stories, and it was very effective. Somebody did this thing where they paired up people, you had a partner, and you got these cards and you go through the questions. And by the end, I would say like within 5 minutes, you were having a very deep, intimate conversation. And it was kind of strange how fast you could get there if you had the right sequence of questions.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I did another icebreaker. I went to a philanthropy conference, and the icebreaker was you had to draw a graph of your life with the highs and the lows. So, whatever. And then you had 5 minutes to describe them. So, this might be, when I got fire or whatever,
Right.
I got, and because you're telling the highs and the lows, you get to know someone very quickly. I love that. It was a good icebreaker.
Okay, great. So, Jay, how about your fourth cool tool?
My fourth cool tool, I don't think it's going to be as great as the shoelaces, but it is a piece of clothing that I love. And it is one of the stretchy belts. So you can see they stretch, and there are no holes because you can put it in wherever you are most comfortable, because it's woven. So, you can put it in there or just like right there. And, I think my wife thinks that they look good. So I love them. They are the most comfortable belts I've ever had. I am, much to my wife's dismay, my priority is comfort in terms of clothing. So this satisfies both of us. I tried for a while to find fancy sweatpants, which do exist, that kind of look like real pants, so you can wear them to a nice event. But I found, and this is probably peculiar to me, that having the constant pressure of elastic on my stomach gave me a stomach ache. So this is sort of another way to achieve the same thing. So I looked it up. I thought it was only one place, but I just looked it up, and there are lots of places that sell these kinds. The one I got it from is called Beltology, Beltology. So that's worth a Google. But again, just if you Google stretchy elastic belts, you'll see tons of cool options.
Well, wow. Yeah. So I migrated over to web belts, years ago, which have no holes. They were called tactical military belts. And so they're continuous, and you put them in, and then you have a clasp, and a clasp anywhere you want.
Oh, I see. Yeah, they're very similar.
But they're not stretchy.
Oh, so they're not. Oh,
not stretchy. They're just a web, infinite. So you can kind of adjust them pretty easily.
Right.
So the stretchy one, I'll have to give that a try, because I also am a sweatpants person. I like to wear old clothes.
Yeah, me too. Exactly.
The older the clothes, the better. And so, I'm 100% into like what is comfortable rather than what looks fashionable. A columnist in San Francisco once called me the least fashionable person in the Bay Area, which I take as a
congratulations. Yeah, that's huge. That's fantastic. Well, I have another one for you, actually, a bonus, because this is super comfortable shirts that, again, my wife thinks are, they are decent looking, but super comfortable, because also very stretchy. The brand name is Mizzen and Main. Look how stretchy these are. Oh yeah.
Wow.
So comfortable. So I am a big fan of Mizzen.
But it's a button down.
But it looks like a real shirt. Like you can't tell that it's a sweatshirt, soft, stretchy. So that I like. I wore them so much that my wife is sick of them. So now I screwed myself, but I recommend them. And I think they're not the only brand, but they're the one I found.
Do you happen to know what the material actually is? Does it?
I think I'm guessing it's artificial. Let's see. It doesn't say, but I thought at one point it was all polyester or something artificial.
Right. Okay. Stretchy belts, stretchy pants, stretchy shirts.
That's my
Mr. Stretchy. Yeah. Stretchy shoelaces.
Right.
So someone the other day did a cool tool of these shoes that are kind of stretchy shoes. Maybe it's a thing. Maybe that is the future of fashion is stretch.
Well, yeah. I mean, part of my philosophy of life is to be flexible. So why not be flexible in your clothing as well, not just your thoughts?
Flexible clothing. There should be a new Old Navy that does called Flexible.
I would go there. I would invest, in fact.
Well, okay, this has really been delightful. So, tell us about your recent project, your recent book, and which has just come out. And we kind of hinted it at the beginning of this. It's about puzzles.
Right.
There are all kinds of puzzles, and I kind of really hadn't thought about how many varieties there were until I read your book. And then I got, wow, there are a lot. I have, it's impossible for you to kind of like give enough attention to all of them because there's so many.
Right.
But I do have a complaint about one that I was hoping that there was more information on.
What is it? I want to know. Is it
escape rooms?
I have gotten that from one other person.
It was like, they're so great. I just love them. And
I am a huge fan.
And it's like they need their 2 chapters.
I know. Well, listen, they are in there. I have a few pages on them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've gotten into it.
I did. I saw it.
But not enough. All right. Well, let me give you 3 quick points on one. The problem was escape rooms I love too, but they encompass all types of puzzles. They're not a puzzle themselves. So they have logic puzzles and jigsaws.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know if you remember my 2 favorite facts about escape rooms, which I mentioned in the book. One is that I interviewed dozens of escape room owners, and most of them have a guy who comes in every week or so with a different woman on a date and pretends it's his first time at that escape room so that he can wow her with his puzzle solving skills, that he knows the NATO alphabet or whatever. And I guess it works enough that it is, but that is I consider that a very bad use of puzzles. And using puzzles for evil should not be done. Yeah. The second fact that I did not consider was I talked to some escape room owners who say, an unexpected demographic that likes escape rooms are nudists, because if you think about it, if you're a nudist, you can't go with your friends to the bowling alley or the movie theater and take off your clothes. But you go to an escape room, you ask the owner, is it okay if we take off our clothes while we solve the puzzles? And they do. And then they put them back on and they leave. So,
that's okay. I don't know if I need to know that information. But I had my nephew actually bought escape room, which he runs.
Really?
And in Oregon, in Astoria, Oregon. And I said, can you tell when there's a group, which ones are going to be able to escape?
Right.
He said, absolutely.
Interesting.
And I said, what are you looking for? And he says, I can just tell from the communication between the group. Because groups like a high school team, a sports team, will solve it.
Interesting.
Because they know how to work together. They are tuned. And it says a bunch of people that come in that maybe don't know each other and there's no real communication, they're not going to make it through.
Right.
And so it's all about the communication between the team that he says is really the way that you escape.
Well, I love that point, because one of the themes of the book, and the book has, sort of, it's got history, it's got memoir, it's got adventures, going to the jigsaw puzzle tournament in Spain, and it's got puzzles that you can try, old and new. But one of the big themes is that they create cooperation. I mean, some people think of puzzles as this very solitary activity. You're just in the corner doing a crossword. But almost everyone I talked to who was a real puzzler said it's a communal activity. It brings people together. And you do the crossword, you either do it with people or you compare. And same with escape rooms. Or my wife actually owns Watson Adventures scavenger hunts. She's the president of that. And that's all about teamwork as well. And the beauty is you have different people with different strengths. So that's the key, is to let everyone shine with their, whether they're the math people or the word people or the spatial people. Yeah, no, that's why I like escape rooms, is because I'm not that much of a do the puzzle myself person. It feels too much like work. But in a group,
it feels more like fun.
Right. I am all right. Well, next, when I do the paperback, I'll add several pages on escape rooms.
Why don't you show do you have a copy of the book to show?
I do. Doing a show and tell? I do. It is so it's called The Puzzler, and again, it is about my love of all kinds of puzzles and the crazy history of puzzles and the my adventures. Like I went to the headquarters of the CIA, where they have one of the most famous unsolved puzzles in the world, which is called Cryptos. It's a secret code. It's a sculpture, a 30-year-old sculpture with a secret code, and no one has fully cracked the code, but thousands of people spend thousands of hours trying. So it's been I loved researching it. It was, I definitely got a mix of delight and frustration researching it, because I was trying to solve some of these puzzles, and some of them just, make you want to take a nap. But overall, it was a delight, and I'm so glad that I was able to get it out and share.
Now that you've had kind of a tour of the puzzle kingdom, of the puzzle realm, do you have any sense of sort of where it's going? What might be future puzzles or things that maybe are sort of embryonic, that maybe weren't fully formed enough for you to write about, but you thought, there might be something there in the future?
Oh, well, that is interesting. I certainly, computer puzzles, my kids have some video games that are just amazing puzzles. But I imagine in the metaverse, there's going to be extraordinary opportunities for puzzles. Just wild. Like
Myst, kind of like Myst was.
Yeah, Myst, but in virtual 3D, reality. Yeah. I also think it'll be interesting, the sort of the cat and mouse game, or the race between AI and humans in solving puzzles is going to be fascinating. Because I just saw this guy developed an AI for solving crossword puzzles. And he actually touted it as like, this shows that AI is better at solving crosswords. But actually, his version is only better at solving certain types of crosswords, because crosswords have two types. One is two types of clues. One is like trivia. What is it? The river in Uganda, say. But the other is wordplay. So if you were given something like a clue like GEGS, GEGS, what the heck is that? And the answer is scrambled eggs, like very like sophisticated, crazy wordplay. And AI is still not there yet. We'll see, but AI has not mastered that. So on the Thursday puzzle of the New York Times, which is all about themes and understanding, sort of a deeper substructure, that the AI only did 40%. So saying that they've beaten humans, yes, they've beaten them in the trivia part, easy, but not yet in the sort of the, tricky, idiomatic thinking part.
Yeah. So that will, and they're also, I think, obviously being used to create puzzles too.
Well, that was a fascinating little chapter that I researched, is because Sudoku and Ken and these other Japanese logic puzzles where you get a grid with some numbers and you have to fill in, most of those that you see in the newspaper are created partly or wholly by computers. And, they can spit out 1 million in a second. But some of the people in the Sudoku community believe very strongly that a human created Sudoku is better, that it's a work of art, that it tells a story, that it has emotion, and that it cannot be replicated, at least not yet, with AI. I'm agnostic on whether that's true, because I'm not, I haven't spent enough time on that particular genre to know, but it is interesting. They're very passionate about saying, humans cannot be replaced. Well,
there's AI being generated art these days with the DALL-E, and there's a website where you can try and guess whether a piece of art was made by a human or by DALL-E. And even if you're really good, you're not going to be perfect at it. But some people are better than others, where you can kind of see the tells about the the way the AI paints these days.
Interesting.
All right. Yes, and then that's just today, and then in 50 years from now, or 10 years from now, who knows? But there will be a style. The thing I say is that if you care about it, you'll always be able to tell. But most of the time, you don't care, and so you won't even be able to tell.
Right. Well, what about books? Like, will I be able to write like 2 chapters of a book and then have AI finish, and it'll be as good?
Well,
or no, it's not good as
it'll be something, but right now the AIs have very short attention span. They're really good at filling in a scene, doing a couple pages. They're not very good for the long form because they get distracted. They have kind of a dream logic. It's really hard to steer them over time.
Interesting.
And so right now they're really good for short, immediate things like a single image or scene or whatever, but they get distracted very easily.
All right. Well, maybe they'll learn. We'll get them some Ritalin or
exactly.
Digital.
To be like kids, they may take 12 years to really
exactly.
Kind of
right. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Fascinating.
Well, this has really been fabulous. It's a great book. I really enjoyed The Puzzler, and I recommend it. Thank you for joining us and sharing your cool tools. It's always a pleasure.
My pleasure. Yeah. I loved it. It was a joy to share and to talk to you, which is always a treat. So thank you. And I hope to talk to you soon, on or off the air.
Yeah. Well, good luck on your trip coming up.
Oh, well, thank you. We'll be doing some Askhole questions, so I'll let you know.
We're glad that you enjoyed this issue of the Cool Tools Show and Tell. Just want to remind you that we have some other coolish material on our YouTube channel here. Please subscribe, comment, like. In addition, this Cool Tools Show and Tell is also available in an Audible podcast form. You can subscribe to it wherever you subscribe to other podcasts if you just wanted to listen. And if you're listening, know that there is a visual version of this on our YouTube channel where we're actually showing the tools, and there's a little bit more of a visual component there. In addition, the same folks that put us, the Cool Tools website out, we also put out a free newsletter every week. It's very, very short. It's 1 page or less. We recommend 6 very brief items that are very succinct, easy to read. You can deal with it in a couple minutes. And every week we bring to you the 6 cool things that we have uncovered and want to share. And it's called Recommendo with 1 M, recommendo.com. You'll be able to find it there. It's free. Join 50,000 plus other subscribers every Sunday morning. You'll get it in your email box. And it's actually one of the most popular things that we produce. But we do produce other newsletters as well. One of them is called What's in Your Bag. We have one that goes out to tools and tips for your workshop. So you can get those at our website, and they are also free. And finally, I want to mention the fact that we do have a Patreon, and this podcast and this vidcast are supported by Patreon supporters. The minimum is $1 a month. And for that, you get an email to ask us anything. We'll respond and answer your question if we're able to. There are other higher levels. You can all see those at our Patreon page. And all those links are below right here. So thank you again for being a fan. And we'll keep producing stuff if you enjoy it. Thanks. We give thanks to this week's patrons, who include Phil King, John Wood, Matthew Robbins, Spike Yakwa, Dave, Sean Hartley, David Long, Matt Gromes, David Bouquet, Les Howard, and Adam Bristol. Thank you, each one, for your support. We appreciate it.